Okay, Boker Tov, everyone. So we are back at Masechet Beitzah, Daf Yud Gimel, Amud Aleph, top of Daf Yud Gimel. So we got up to. We're dealing with some of the halachot relating to Trumot and Maasrot at the moment. A little bit technical, because we got onto all of this because of the Mishnah. We had a machloket between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel regarding whether Trumot. We spoke about chala and different matanot to the Kohanim. Not going to repeat everything we said, but there was a discussion as to whether those things can be transferred to the Kohen on Yom Tov or not. We saw at Braita 3 different opinions. Saw the opinion of Rabbi Yossi, who says that the machloket is regarding Truma, whether you can take Truma to the Kohen or not. And as a result of that, we got into a discussion about Truma, whether Truma can be separated on Yom Tov or not. Again, the fundamental principle was any time where, generally speaking, Trumot and Maasrot, we say, cannot be separated on Shabbat and Yom Tov. We'd say that's an Isur D'Rabbanan, because it's similar to Metaken. However, when it comes to Yom Tov, so certain instances of Matnot Kohuna, etc., Chazal allowed whereby it could not be done beforehand. So Chala you could separate on Yom Tov because you could knead the dough on Yom Tov and only became obligated in Chala on Yom Tov itself. What about Truma? So we said, generally speaking, Truma, the obligation of Truma kicks in before Yom Tov, and therefore, that's what there was the Mishnah sentence that said, Truma she'eno zakai b'haramata, that you can't separate it on Yom Tov itself. And now we're going through, there may be different cases with Mula Melilot and different ways in which the food is processed in such a way that it only takes place on Yom Tov, and therefore the Truma would be allowed on Yom Tov to separate. That's where we're up to in the middle. So let's just pick it up on the top of Yud Gimel, Amud Aleph. We have a Braita, right? We said Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda the Tanya, with the following Braita. Yichnis shibolin la'asot mehen isa, ochel mehen arai upatur. Lemolalan b'mlilot Rabbi Mechayev Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda poter. So again, the principle is one needs to, it's only from the time that the food, the processing is finished, we've had the Gemar Melacha for that produce, from there it's obligated in the Torah in Trumot and Masrot. Rabbanan said, even earlier you can't eat it without taking Trumot and Masrot, but that is only for Achilat Keva, Achilat Arai, to go and eat something sporadically before the Gemar Melacha has taken place, that one could do even without having separated Truma. So here the case is, you bought these grains, one brought these grains into one's home in order to essentially pile them up and do it in the normal way that one would, and eventually grind them and create a dough from them, create flour, etc. So in that case, right, so you've brought them into the house, but you have not you have not put them together in these bundles, you've not piled them up, you haven't finished the processing of the grains, and therefore chelmen arai upatur. Therefore, in such a case, you could eat from them sporadically and you'd be exempt. Okay? Says Rashi over here, chelmen arai, kozman shelot dashan, you haven't threshed them, you haven't ground them, umerchan bekri, and smooth them out in a pile, lo nigra melachtan l'truma. The Gemar Melacha has not yet taken place, and therefore the chiyuv d'oraita of truma is not yet kicked in. However, what if you're bringing these grains lemolalan b'mlilot, as we discussed last week? Lemolalan b'mlilot means essentially you're rolling the grains with your fingers, and you're going to snack on them as is. So that's where we have a machloket. Rabbi Mechayev, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda poter. Okay, so Rashi, you're going to roll them up in between your fingers, and that's how you're going to eat them. So Rabbi Mechayev. So Rabbi says in that case, they are now chayav in truma. Why? Chayav in truma. You now, we say, if that's the way you're going to eat them, so you cannot even eat from them sporadically until you've separated truma. You are not these stalks, these grains. You're not going to pile them up and smooth them out, and therefore the Gemar Melacha is just bringing them into the house, and that's already taken place. This is their goren. Okay, that is Rabbi's opinion. However, Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda poter. Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda says, the Gancha Ktiv, the Pasuk says, the Gancha. What does the Gancha mean? So Rabbi Yossi says no. He says when the pasuk tells me about Trumot and Masrot, it uses the word dagan. Dagan means when you're processing the grain in the normal way, you're smoothing them out into a pile like that. And if you're not going to do that, so then these grains never enter the realm of Trumot and Masrot. That's what he's saying. It's not that what you do now is the Gemar Melacha. It's only the Meruach HaKri. It's only the way that you process grains in these piles that is considered the Gemar Melacha. And if you're eating them in a different way, they are not in the realm of Trumot and Masrot. So why do we have all of that? That is to show us, so clearly the question is this: is there a case where you would have to separate the Trumah, you'd be allowed to separate Trumah on Yom Tov because it only became obligated in Trumah on Yom Tov? So generally speaking, the Meruach HaKri that Gemar Melacha can't be done on Yom Tov. That's not allowed. And therefore, you would say, no, but just bringing these grains into your home on Yom Tov, that you could do. So according to Rebbe, you bring them inside, you want to molalan b'mlilot, eat them in this way. According to Rebbe, now the chiyuv of Trumah kicks in as you're about to eat them, so you can separate Trumah. So therefore, according to Rebbe, that's our case, where you would be able to separate Trumah and Yom Tov. But according to Rabbi Yossi, in this case, they're patur. They're exempt from Trumah. So there is, at this point, we understand there is no case, according to Rabbi Yossi, where you would be required and hence allowed to separate the Trumah on Yom Tov. Now, says the Gemara, wait a minute, I'll give you, there is a case. In fact, it says, Rabbi Yossi, the fourth line of the Gemara, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, nami meshkachat la. We can conjecture a case for Rabbi Yossi. Cases as follows. Okay, so you brought these grains into the home. Again, your intent is to pile them up and to smooth them out and to make from them flour. But then you change your mind and you decide actually you're just going to pick them up one by one and eat them in this way. Snack on them. Granola bars. Okay. So says Rabbi Yossi, the tavla b'yomei. He says there it actually became tevel. What? Because although Rabbi Yossi says, if you had brought them in the first place in order to just snack on them, to just roll them between your fingers and eat the grain in that way, so it's not called dagan. There is no Gemar Melacha. It's not even in the realm of Trumot and Masrot. But he says, no, if you bring them in and your intent is to pile them up and to perform the Gemar Melacha and to grind them into flour, so at that point it becomes tevel. At that point it enters the realm of Trumot and Masrot. Now you're nimlach aleim. Now you change your mind. You say, actually, well, now I just want to eat them as is. Well, they've already been in the category of tevel, and now the fact that you're eating them like that means that is actually considered the Gemar Melacha. So this is the case. This is the only case, but where according to Rabbi Yossi, would the chiyuv of Trumot would kick in on Yom Tov, and therefore you would be allowed to. Let's have a look at Rashi over here. Rashi says, "Parchinan leRava." So the Rashi, the Dibra Matkes Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda Poter, that we already read, and then there's two dots, and it says, "Parchinan leRava." De'amar molalan Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda Nami. He's saying, even according to Rabbi Yossi, if we allow one to molalan, right, to roll them in your fingers to eat them on Yom Tov, mashkachan la'al kochach shezakai baramata. That here is a case whereby you can separate the Trumah on Yom Tov. B'mlilot. Shichnisan nasot isa bedisha umiluach. Right, you brought them into the home in order to, with the intent to make a flour, to grind them and smooth them out. V'nimlach alehen lemolalan natznian kulan mlilot. And then you changed your mind and you decided, no, you're going to roll them and eat them as is. Rabbi Yossi agrees. The tavlan bayom, that they became tevel initially, shenimlach aleim, and then when you change your mind, the kevan dichnisan l'shem golen gamul, once you brought them into the home for the sake of grinding them like any other wheat and making it like a goren, then yadalen tolat trumot masrot. Now it enters the category of trumot and masrot. Ukshenimlach lemolalan, but when you change your mind and you want to eat them as is, so now nasetach nasato goren. That means retroactively, or from now on, that the fact that you brought them into the home, that is called the Gemar Melacha. So therefore, it has to be that if you can eat them in this way on Yom Tov, you have to separate the Trumot beforehand. Okay.
Rabbi Kenigsberg, when does it become tevel? It becomes tevel when you're going to use it in a normal manner, when you're going to heap it up, and then it becomes tevel.
Well, that's exactly what the Gemara is discussing. Meaning, midoraita, the tevel, the obligation of Trumot and Masrot kicks in from the stage of Gemar Malacha, when the processing of the produce has been completed. Again, for every different food, that stage is going to be different. But when it comes to dagan, when it comes to grains, we say it's what's called miruach hakri, which is when you've got all the grains and you have them in a pile, and that is smoothed out. That is the Gemar Malacha. The question is, if I am now have the grains in question are never going to get to that stage. Dagan, the word dagan means grain, but it refers to these piles of grain when they've been smoothed out. So Rabbi Yossi says, if I'm never going to get to that stage, never planning to get to that stage, this doesn't even enter the category of tevel in the first place. Right. That's why he says if you bring in the grains, the stalks, one by one, and eat them in that way, there is no obligation of truma. However, that's the machlok between Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi. However, Rabbi Yossi will agree that if you bring in these stalks one by one, with the intent for them ultimately to become a dagan, ultimately to you're going to bring in more and you're going to pile them up. So at that moment, I would say that enters the category of dagan, meaning that ultimately it is going to be part of tevel, but the actual obligation only kicks in once it's together once it's been processed. So, but if you bring it in with that intent, so it's going to become processed, and then you change your mind and you say, well, actually, I'm going to eat these stalks as is, and now they won't get to that final stage of processing. So at that point, you would be obligated to separate the Trumot and Masrot from it, because you're now saying it was in the category of Dagan, but it's Gemar Malacha, the final process before I'm going to eat it has been done, because I'm eating it as it is. So that's the case according to Rabbi Yossi, where I would be required to take Trumot just before I eat it. Say that?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So now now we have a problem, because we began this whole discussion because our Mishnah said that it had a principle. Our Mishnah Braita, all of it said that if you look back for a minute, the last line of the Mishnah, it said that we accept as an axiom. Truma eino zakai baramata. You cannot separate Truma and Yom Tov. We've just proven there's a case according to everybody where you can separate Truma and Yom Tov. So says the Gemara, Ela mai Truma, Rov Truma. You know, in most cases, I'm not saying, says the Gemara, we're not saying that it's impossible that there's a case where you could separate Truma on Yom Tov, but generally speaking, 99% of the time, you are not allowed to separate it, and therefore we make that distinction. Okay, so now we've seen the machloket between Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi regarding grains, regarding when you bring them in, and when you bring them in initially for the purpose of just eating as they are, whether they're chayiv in truma or not. So we now have two versions. Abai is going to say of whether that machloket applies. It applies to grains. Would it apply in the same way to kitniot or not? Well, it wouldn't, but two different versions in terms of what the difference is between the cases. So says the Gemara now. We're about 8 lines from the top. Amar Abaye, machloket b'shibulin, aval b'kitniot divrei hakol asuriyata tivla. Again, the question is when you bring in not the entire processed thing, but 1 or 2 or a few of these things at a time. At that point, are they chayav in Trumot and Masrot? So Abaye says the machloket between Rabbi and Rabbi Yossi regarding shibulin was only regarding shibulin. However, kitniot, when it comes to kitniot, different types of legumes, right? Divrei hakol asuriyata tevla. Everybody would agree. In this case, Rabbi Yossi is going to be modeh to Rabbi as well, that when you bring in these small bundles of the kitniot one at a time into your home, already there they are chayav in truma. Divrei hakol asuriyata tivla. It's considered teva. Okay, how do we know that? Where should we prove that from? Prove Abaye's statement. So perhaps we'll say we can bring it from the following source. Okay, the Mishnah in Trumot. It says, Leima Messiah. מי שהיו לו חבילי טרטן של תבל, הרי זה קוטש ומחשב, כמה זרע יש בהם, ומפריש על הזרע ואינו מפריש על העץ. Okay, so if a person has bundles of tiltan. Tiltan, this is a type of, maybe a type of bean or a type of kitnit. So in some of the translations, they call it fenugreek. I don't know what fenugreek is, but anyway, it's tiltan. So this type of thing. And Rashi, I think Rashi tells us that you don't use a lot of it. You only put a little bit of it into the pot at a time, I guess, to give it flavor. So it says, if you have these bundles of tiltan, so how do you work out how much do you have to separate? It says you crush it up. Essentially, you have the seeds. If you think of it, it's probably something that's in a pod or whatever it is. So you have the seeds and you have the hard outer casing. It says when you crush it up and you have to work out, because you have to take a certain percentage of truma, so you only have to calculate from the seeds and not from the eights, only from that which is the inner part and not from the outer. Why would you think both? By the way, the Gemara is going to say a little bit later that when it comes to tiltan, both the seeds and the eights also both have a taste. But in any event, it says you only have to calculate from that amount. But what do we see from here? We see from here that you're bringing this, meaning you're not doing the whole process of processing, etc. You're bringing these small bundles in, and you are required to separate truma. So that seems to be like what Rabbi said before, not what Rabbi Yossi said. So says the Gemara, "My love, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, Hudama, Rabbi Yudai." Surely this Mishnah is therefore the opinion of Rabbi Yossi, meaning what's it coming to teach us? It's coming to teach us the following. Right? He said if you had done this with grains, with wheat, and you brought them in, and there you don't have to separate anything. But here you do have to separate. Okay, so seemingly by kidniot there is no machloket that we had by grains. Says the Gemara, look, Rabbi. No, you could say that this is, you haven't proven anything. This is the one here who says that it's Tevel, is the one who said before that it's Tevel, and that's Rebbe. So ask the Gemara, wait a minute. Rebbe, my area tiltan. Why do we have a Mishnah teaching me specifically the case of tiltan? By the way, if you just have a look at Rashi, that's what we said before. Rashi says, well, actually, look at Rashi where he says from the beginning, Machloket b'shibolin. Few lines down from where we are in the Gemara, Rashi says, "Machlok b'shibolin, b'hanu the batar Rabbi Yossi the Roban ledisha." When it was with grains, right? So there, Rabbi Yossi said it's patur because usually, most of the time, that they're going to be crushed up anyway. Ve'en garnan ela b'miruach, and that is what's considered the processing of b'kitniot. When it comes to these kitniot, yesh bnei adam habe. There are many people she'en chovdin otan yachad, who don't bring them all together and crush them all together. Ela kadei kederatan. You just bring in a little bit, as much as you need for your pot, and that's the amount that you crush up and put into the and use to cook. Lefichach hachnasatan b'chavilin. Therefore, you bring in small bundles of kitniot. That is already considered their goren. Okay, and then he says Rashi tiltan. Min kitnitu, it's a type of kitnit. Atnotin bakdera, right? You place a small amount in the pot at a time, litain ta'am, to give it taste. Okay.
Tiltan, by the way, nowadays is clover, and you can see that in its name, talata, three-leaved clover, and it's used mainly as animal fodder for cows.
Okay, yeah. So could be, as I say, I'm not sure exactly what it is, but interesting. It's also in modern Hebrew. I think when you have with playing cards. So clubs, the suit of clubs is a tiltan. There's a piece of trivia for you as well. So, but thank you, Shlomo. Okay, so in any event, but what do we see? So the point is that the Gemara said you crush it up and you have to separate the truma. So he said surely the point is it's teaching you that already now it's Tevel, and that's Rabbi Yossi. And we said, no, not necessarily. The Mishnah could still be like Rebbe. If it's like Rebbe, again, a little bit before halfway down on the Amud, Rebbe, my area tiltan. Why are you teaching him about tiltan? Okay, cloves or whatever it is. Afilu shibolinami. Meaning Rebbe holds that halacha that you have to separate it by not just by kitniot, not just by tiltan, by everything. So why does it single out tiltan in the Mishnah? Okay, but says the Gemara, but why are you singling out tiltan? That's not just a question on Rebbe. That's a question if it's Rabbi Yossi as well. Elamai, Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, Nishmein and Shamine kitniot, v'kol sheken tiltan. Right, Rabbi Yossi could teach us about any kitniot. Why specifically this one? Right, have a look. Rashi here, the first line of Rashi gets a little bit longer. He says Lishmein and Shamine kitniot. The tavlu bechavile, right? If you hold that all kitniot are now going to become tevel in these bundles, teach me about those. With other kitniot, right? It's more common that people do pile them up in a much larger amount, and even there we'd say it's tevel. So teach me about that, and I would say. Kol sheken tiltan, me'at me'at, right? What's unique about tiltan is that you only place a small amount in the bikdera. Lemetek v'not no be'etzo. Okay. Yeah, if we're saying that it's cloves, so that certainly makes sense. So says the Gemara, no. Ela tiltan itzrichale. Rather, we have to relearn the Mishnah. The point of this Mishnah was not to teach you about the fact that you separate tevel in general, right? And then it's a proof of Rabbi Yossi versus Rebbe. No, that's not what it's about. The whole point of this Mishnah was to teach me specifically about tiltan. And what? Salgadata chamina. I would have said, ho'il v'tam etzo v'piryo shaveh. This is one of those unique species whereby the taste of the eitz, literally means wood, but this can mean the outer shell, the outer casing, and the piryo, and the fruit, meaning the inner seeds, both have the same taste. Tam etzo piryo shaveh. Lifrosh nami eitzo. So therefore, I would have thought that when I come to separate truma, I have to calculate where am I taking truma from, not just from the inner seeds, but also from the outer part. That's what I would have thought. Kamash Malan comes to teach you that not. And that is why I need the Mishnah. Very interesting, this principle of this idea of Tam Eitzov Piryo Shaveh. We find this, we go back to in Sefer Bereshit, Parashat Bereshit, the story of creation. Right, and over there you remember the Midrashim, and you remember Rashi tells us that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu creates the world, so he says he's going to create, he says, let the land sprout forth around eitz pri oseh pri, a fruit tree which produces fruit. When it is actually created, what happens? It is an eitz oseh pri. It is a tree which creates fruit. In other words, and this is where we learn out that it was meant to be, whatever that means, right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu got it wrong. Obviously, he didn't get it wrong, but it's teaching us something. It's teaching us that the process of creation and the way that this world exists, things are not ideal. But the ideal reality, so to speak, is that the tree and the tree itself and the fruits of the tree are meant to have the same taste. The tree itself should be tasty like the fruit, but that is not the way that it was created. The earth rebelled, so to speak. Okay, lots of different ideas to talk about there. Some of them Kabbalistic, but and therefore we have a tree which does not taste the same as the fruit. But there are remnants of it. There are certain species whereby Tama Eitz v'Tama Pri Shaveh. And again, all this is to teach us that in this world, it's there is a process. The process doesn't always feel the same as the end goal, as the fruit, but nonetheless. Okay, so that is the first version. That is of what Abaye says. Now we have a second version. Ika de Amri. Others learn like this. Amar Abaye, Mechloket b'shibulin, aval b'kitniot, divrei hakol asoyat lo tavla. According to this version, we say the opposite. That the machloket is right only by shibulin, but when it comes to kitniot, right, the machloket between Rabbi and Rabbi Yossi is that everybody holds, according to this, that it would be patur, that it would be exempt from Trumot Masra in this case. Why? See Rashi, he says, Ikad Amri Amabay machloket b'shibulin, be'anu machayev Rabbi lefi shabei konsinotan lemlilot. The klayot shehen golnan. Right, when it comes to grains, there Rebbe said no, because most people are going to bring them in and sorry, that it's a more common thing that people are going to eat it in this way. Aval b'kitniot stam machnasatan limroach. But when it comes to kitniot, no, you're not going to bring them in and just crush them up individually in their bundles. You're going to process all of it together. So it's really the opposite of what we said before. So now the Gemara says, okay, well, we have a challenge on that. If that's the case, again, מי שהיו לו חבילי טילטן של תבל, הרי זה קוטש ומחשב כמה זרע יש בו, אינו מפריש על הזרע ואינו מפריש על העץ. Okay, so that's exactly the same, that's quoting the same mission that we said before. But the question is, if you're saying now that everybody agrees that you would not have to separate Trumot and Maasrot from Kitniot, which were just brought in their bundles, why do you need to separate Trumot and Maasrot from this Tiltan? What's it talking about? So says the Gemara, my love tevel tavul shel truma. Okay, here it gets a little bit confusing because the word tevel means trumot and masrot haven't been separated from it, right? Which trumot have not been separated from it? If we say tevel tavul, here it says tevel tavul shel truma, means truma, what's also called truma gdola, has not been taken. That's the first bit which goes to the kohen. But remember, after you separate truma gdola, you then separate maser rishon. The first tithe, Maser Rishon, goes to the Levi. The Levi needs to separate from his Maser Rishon, Trumot Maser. Right? There is Truma which goes from the Maser. So when we say Tevel, Tevel means Truma has not been taken. Doesn't mean Truma Gdolah has not been taken, or doesn't mean that Trumat Maser has not been taken. Okay, so yeah, says the Gemara, my love, Tevel Tavul Shel Truma, we assume that this is Tevel Gamor, you haven't separated Truma. He says, no, look. Tevel Tavul Shel Trumot Maaser. We're actually dealing with a case where it's not, where Trumat Maaser has not been taken. And therefore that's going to be different, and there's going to be a different reason as to why this is going to be obligated. Okay, but I think we'll stop there for now, and we'll pick it up from there next week. Be'ezrat Hashem. So everybody have a wonderful day, and Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.
Shabbat Shalom. Toda Rabbah.